Testing. Get some headphones on. And looks like YouTube's getting the feed. Not really sure what I'm going to do today. Back hurts. But I had an idea that came to me. And I thought I might try and code it up. So I created a duplicate of the hash pager. Just testing to see it. Yep, it's working properly. So the way this is laid out is that it's got infinite columns. Well, the pager itself kind of represents this whole area, and when you have enough subpages, it just kind of keeps going and going with a side scroll, which is what I was going for, sort of, but like obviously this is incomplete. It needs some like fine tuning for how you handle the depth. And so another way to handle, simplify the depth is to just have two columns. So I've thought about that a bit, and it doesn't necessarily, it wasn't necessarily obvious exactly how it would all work. Let me see if I can draw this out. I should probably create a new file here in Figma. I guess this could be it. This was something I was doing for that 5mind, which turned out to be a waste of time. This would be, let's just call it November, because it's going to be November soon. New page. And this would be let's just call it 2 plus column, because that's kind of the idea I was going for. Let's just say we have column 1. What was that? F. If I push F and get frames, and I can just plus on either side. That's kind of cool. Never seen that before, but I'll alt drag it the old-fashioned way. And so generally the idea here was, let's put a 1 here, and Shift L for the line tool. Go from, not sure what happened there, but that is kind of what I wanted. Just click and drag. It's fine. Let's delete this and bring our number 1 over. And then I'll make this just a little smaller and put like a drop shadow on this guy. Whoops, not export. Layout guide? What is a layout guide? I have seen these before. Aren't these like grid things? Yeah, okay. They move that down here. Effects, drop shadow. This is the blur help. Our stacking orders messed up. There we go. Send it down. Okay, so let me put this all in a frame. I don't know if making it darker helps. Not a bad idea. Okay, so this would be the second column. The idea here is like you're browsing something, like even on a giant screen. Well, I could kind of represent my giant monitor with these guys. And we could even do something like this, where we kind of make this kind of more resemble kind of what I'm thinking here. And so then you're going to be going from kind of a 1-pager to a 2-pager. Let's go ahead and just delete, I guess. We'll redo that shadow thingy. Effects, just crank up the blur, I think. Okay, so then, you click on something on that page. I don't know how that's oriented vertically. God damn it. We're going to delete this one. it and bring this one over just so that they're lined up properly vertically. Anyway, this should be centered. So you click on something on the first page, and then second page could even be smaller. It's like a sub page. It slides out. This should be on top. Make it look like it. All right. So yeah, that's so the one to two columns and back again. Like you could close out the second. You know, it's sort of like properties or comments or whatever you want to put in there. And you know, it could be like a sidebar. You know, where you like a lot of shit in Figma here is, you know, you got this properties sidebar that whenever you click on something, it shows the properties for that thing. So it's kind of a similar idea, but in this case, I'm thinking it's kind of like a subpage. So more like text-based content, you know, a post or page or blog or whatever, and then comments or notes or whatever. You could, you know, this could be adapted to whatever you want. But okay, so you get the second column. Now on mobile, maybe I should put this under here and also try and do like a mobile version. I don't often do that, but I have, you know, kind of like to support mobile with most of the layouts when possible. Making things responsive isn't terribly hard. This is not set up properly. Why can't we? I could set this to center. That's not, I mean, it'll kind of work for now, but that's not really what I was. Getting things responsive in Figma is just, it's like, is it worth the time? So mobile's going to be more just kind of this aspect ratio. This would probably be just more of like a full screen thing at this point. Well, then the question is, well, how does this look on mobile? And honestly, it would just be like this. It would just, you just switch. You click on mobile, you just click anything on this page, and you switch to the second page. And, you know, on desktop, instead of switching, well, it could slide out as a little one. Now, you also could have, alternatively, this one becomes, even if this is like a, well, they could be equal. This one could even become bigger, even if it's a sub page. It kind of takes focus. And I don't know, I've thought about like having some sort of select, you know, when you select one of them, it becomes bigger, but that jumps around and stuff. This whole like, you know, offset here to make one look like a sub page and the size of them, all that could vary, and like experimenting and trying to get the right feel for what you're going for could vary a lot. So let's just keep this as kind of a sub page for now. And well, okay, so then the next step would be, well, what if that page 2 has like sub page for like page 3? You could just then slide everything over, so this becomes page 2, this becomes page 3. And whoops, on mobile, you know, you click on something on page 2, you go to page 3. If you click on something on desktop, if you click on something on page 2, yeah, I mean, these probably should be more like equal widths, just to not complicate things. So that then, yeah, whatever. So like, it just kind of slides over, essentially. Like, you know, I don't know if I'd try and animate it, but page 1 hides, page 2 kind of takes its place, page 3 becomes the new page 2, and it just, you could do that endlessly, like everything just kind of slides over. And then if you close 3, then it goes back to this screen where 2 kind of slides back to its spot and the 1 appears again. And then I was thinking you could have something like a table of contents view where, I don't know, you could even make it very like small and list-like, where at any point in this system, in order to give a better, you know, user experience, like give more contextual view, like instead of this being kind of a content page, this could be like a table of contents, you know, with like a, well, presumably page 2 is part of page 2 is part of page 1. And so like getting actual content in here and kind of seeing how this all like works would take some time, and you know, maybe worth the while. But the big so that was, you know, I don't know, not so hard to write down, sketched it out pretty quick. But then the next step was well, yeah, so the kind of summary of my little drawing there was 2 plus, but 2 at a time. And it's really 1 or 2 at a time, but like you could have 8 columns, but only 2 at a time. So that's the whole idea of 2 plus columns, is like instead of doing infinite columns like this, where it could just keep going and going and going and stretch out, you know, to the left and right or whatever, you know, we could limit it to 2 columns, and or 3-ish, you know, like with table of contents, and then like as like a, well, so this would be like sort of 3 columns, and if you needed another one, then the table of contents could either hide, or maybe the second page becomes also a table of contents to make more room. But that requires a lot of like JavaScript, you know, logic to be like, how much space do we have? How much space do we need? How do we convert these things? And it could just be, you know, I was thinking you could make a pretty simple way to convert a normal content page with a page title and paragraphs and images and content and all that shit. You could turn it into a table of contents by just slapping a simple CSS class on it, like TOC. You know, like if you add a class to this that's just like TOC, you could just have CSS rules that hide the I'm just going to add a slight background to this just so you can kind of see where it is. It could hide all the paragraphs, so you only get section titles that are then, you know, like clickable. And the difference between subpages and sections, and you know how this all works, I'm still kind of juggling this around in my head. But yeah, I mean, that could be easy to turn a normal content into a table of contents view, just to shrink it, give more space for the rest of the stuff. But in order to have that work properly at different resolutions, like I got a giant monitor, some people might have like a standard 1920 monitor, or smaller for like laptops or something. And so that could be tricky to like write the correct logic to show and hide and transform the columns no matter which size and how many columns. I'm sure I could figure it out, but it might take a while, and I don't feel like dealing with that. And so part of the goal here was to simplify the logic, the layout logic, in order to not, you know, overwhelm myself with the complexity of that. And so the next, another challenge with this whole system was, what about mobile? How do you get this like 2-column business to work on mobile? And the answer hit me. It's basically just, well, I could even just write it in CSS form: mobile left display none. So the left column, whichever one it is, you know, I don't know, this might be left. Set it up. If you set this up as left and you did this, that wouldn't work. So you might need something else, you know, to differentiate between 1 column and 2. Maybe this one, instead of getting a left class, it gets like a single class or something. Or maybe it's just 1, like 1, just so that, you know, it's like the first column, but there's only 1. I don't know. So I'll have to think that through. But yeah, so if instead of having 2 columns on mobile, you want the left one to hide, you just basically have a class for, you know, left column and right column, which would be left and right, and the left gets hidden on mobile. I don't really have this set up yet, but I could do something like that. And so that all that logic seems to actually work pretty well, because, well, and I was thinking here in JavaScript mode, the switching logic would be something like you'd have a property that would represent the left column view, and you'd hide it, and then you'd push it into like an array of lefts of like, yeah, all the left columns before it. So at each stage of this depth process, whichever one was getting, like when you go from 1 and 2 to 2 and 3, then 1 would be the left, and it would be added to this array of lefts. And then when you go from 2 and 3 to 3 and 4, then 2 would get added to that array, and so it keeps track of all of the previous left columns, so you can put them back, and then left equals right. Now you'd probably have to add some classes or do some other things, but essentially then you just switch the right, you put the right one on the left, and however that needs to happen. And so, yeah, I think it wouldn't be terribly hard. Now, to adapt my old pager here to the new version where we're only going to do 2 columns, I basically, just need to track the left and the right instead of just, so before I was doing, let's not confuse these 2 pages here, which is easily going to happen. Let's just close this one so I try not to edit that one. Yeah, having a lot of page.js files could get confusing in here. I just got to make sure I click on the right one. But okay, so where was the hash pager render? We do this capture thingy where we append this content to this view. That's what actually renders the page content. And in the page content, we have, let me put this one over here. What is this one? This is the one I closed. Okay, so the page content is this function here that can have title, paragraphs, subpages. I forgot that I got these page functions working to capture those, and those work pretty well. Nice and concise. But okay, so when it's rendering the page's content via this function and it's capturing it, then these subpages get added to the parent page via this add method, and it adds them to the array, but it also, it does like a capturing thing. I think this dot render. Yeah, so it renders the page and then captures the content, which is presumably or often going to be a function. How do the subpages get added? And where do they get added? Here we go. This is the thing. The container for the page is appended to the hash pager. Presumably the whole class only has 1 pager. I think I set that up down here somewhere, so we have like a singleton model. And I'm not sure that's the best way to do it, but it's working for now. The pager's view has this container for all the pages, and so all these pages, we could inspect this and see it. Each page, oh, there's a lot of pages in there. Each page gets added to the pages thing. All the pages and subpages for all the pages get added, kind of just dumped into one big container, which isn't necessarily the smartest thing to do. This could get messed up quite easily with just other dumb manipulations, but it seems to work. And as long as I'm showing and hiding them properly and they stay in the right order. Wait, why isn't that working? I think something's bugged there. Fuck. I thought I fixed all these problems. So the problem happened when so that worked. Oh, no, that didn't work. Somehow it gets deactivated, but doesn't track that it's being deactivated, and then doesn't so I can't reactivate this one. Fucking hell, man. Now it can. Once there's a different one activated, then alright, whatever. I'll deal with that later. Minor problem. But yeah, so all the pages go into one pages container for, it's like nav and pages, and pretty simple and straightforward. And so instead of pages having all of these, I guess it still could, but maybe now I want to, I mean, I could even create like a left and a right container. Instead of the page itself being like having a class of left, one having a class of left and one having a class of right, maybe I have a left and a right container. So like instead of this left being a reference to the actual page element, it could be just kind of a an extra wrapper, a column wrapper essentially, that could then easily just the contents could be replaced with the next page. Just trying to think through both of those alternatives. I kind of don't think putting yeah, I mean, if I start putting a bunch of pages in the pages columns thing here, and then trying to like add and remove all the classes, that could get kind of dicey. It might be better to do just, but they're not permanent columns. And what happens when you only have one column here? Well, maybe just starting to code it would be better. So I could find the render function for the pager, which it's this one right here, pretty simple. So inside of the div here, I could create left and right. And but then my logic for hiding the left column on mobile's not really going to work, is it? And it should probably be like a container query, not really like a mobile targeting thing. So how do we go from, let's just write some notes. Remind me later, new note. 1, 2, left, right. How do we go from one column to left, right? So if I want to hide left on like below, it's below a certain width, right? Is there another condition for 1 versus 2 columns? And the answer could be yes. I could use JavaScript to add remove 1 and 2 classes from the pager or pages elements. Is that hard to do? But then I have to listen to the resize on the container, which isn't terrible. It's just then when you want to change the container threshold, then you have to edit it in CSS and in JavaScript, which is kind of a pain in the ass. Yes, but that would require resize. Require a resize callback and JS coded breakpoint, I'll say, as well as CSS container query breakpoint. Same value in 2 places. It's not the end of the world. I just don't like that pattern. What's the alternative? I mean, I think we need JavaScript logic to listen to the width and know when we're going from 1 to 2. Well, because like it should work regardless of whether it's a phone or not. It should work whether you just resize the browser down, and so it has to know at what point. I mean, all right, let me think this through. So we try to use container query to hide left on like below breakpoint. The problem that I'm kind of sensing here is that if you have a single column before a subpage has been activated, then that is like presumably set up as is left, then you'd be hiding the one and only column equals bad. So if we just set it up so that like the left column, like up here, if this was set up in the left column space, so that you can just add the sub page to the right column and it just switches from this to this seamlessly just by simply adding the page to the second container. That's the idea. That's the simplest version. The problem is that then when you resize the browser down to mobile width, and you don't want two columns here. You want this one to hide, which I think that could work just fine. The problem there is that if this is the left column and it hides at mobile width, then here it's going to be hidden. You're not going to have any content. And so there's got to be another switch or logic or something to I'm sure there's a simple solution here. I just don't know why it's not coming to me. Well, so one option again is that this is not the left column. So I could have three containers in the pages, kind of like these two columns that generally you have like a wrapper, and then you have left and right, for two columns, easy peasy. But I could have a third, kind of like a column 0 almost, which would kind of represent this this guy. But then I'd have to move this at this point from that, column 0 into column 1 when I add column 2. Let me think. Well, and that would have to happen at the breakpoint. I'm not seeing a way to get it around hard coding the container resize handler with the actual breakpoint. And so if I have to code it in if I have to code it in JavaScript, is there a way to do it without to avoid duplicate value in CSS? And so essentially use JavaScript to control the container query, which means use JavaScript to specify that breakpoint, add the proper classes to the container, then use CSS to target the container at each breakpoint. work. So let's think this through. When you resize the browser, we'd probably listen to some sort of wrapper around this whole, I don't know, like this whole well area that, kind of adds some padding to this whole bit is, still haven't really thought, like, I don't have a solid sense for what that's called and how to, I mean, whether it's full width or has padding. I mean, I think it's called the root right now. This ID root is like when I hide my little header and sidebar with my hotkey, then this root thing becomes kind of like the whole page, no matter what's going on that page. And, it makes sense to me. It's sort of like a new body. I just have this extra wrappers around it so that I can do this kind of like breadcrumb and navigation thing that if I don't know, I'm debating whether it's supposed to be there or not. It's actually kind of like, I think it's more useful to have it. It's just, I don't know if I always want it, especially on a page like, my, I don't know, does it appear here? I don't think I have this page set up properly to to even have it come out there. But yeah, I mean, so in a sense, that's actually the, as long as I don't have to bring it, then it works the way that I want. Anyway, so I mean, I'm just thinking that the resize handler for this bit, we probably want to target the size of, like, the centered content. I don't know, is there padding on this, or do these have like a max width that then center? I actually kind of think the content should have a max width and be centered, rather than have like some giant padding that needs to be reconfigured for different screen sizes. It should be like a minimal amount of padding that is like a bumper if that happens, and it probably disappears at a certain point. Yeah, so all of that like layout logic is, still beyond me, but so yeah, when this, so this whole bit can resize. This could resize down, and if I center this thing, I can make it just feel a little bit more like a website, and that's fine. It shouldn't hide at this point. Where do we need this to hide? It would be this one, and when it gets to the point where, like, I wish I could have it set up so I could just set like minimum widths on these guys, and then as the container shrinks, then the padding is engaged and shrinks these, and then when their minimum width is engaged, I mean, Flexbox will, like, I could use Flex to wrap them when their minimum width is hit, and they'll wrap properly, but I need to actually know when that happens, because I don't just want it to wrap, I want to hide this one. Because presumably, this, it's like a sub page, but it's also kind of like, it's taken focus. You've clicked on something on the first page, and then now this is more important, so that if you were, well, yeah, if you're browsing this on in a small area, then obviously you'd want the second page, once you click on something on here, you'd want the second page to show, not the first one. So we don't just want this to wrap when it gets too small. This would be like the active page. I'm just going to put this on temporarily. And so this one would need to hide. Why is this so confusing to me right now? I mean, I could use JavaScript to try and list, or like look up the minimum width if there is one. or I just pick a value that's sort of the, well, like if I wanted the minimum width to be 400, for example, might need to go smaller than that, like 300, but like then I could double that to be 600. And so when whatever this wrapper is that goes around the two of these is at 600, that could be like the breakpoint where then, you know, it shrinks down so that they're each 300 at, you know, above 600 pixels, and then at that point then there's not enough room, it reaches its minimum value. So let me just write this down real quick. At 600 pixels, hide left. It would be more like left hide. And this would be more like less than 600 pixels, left hide, greater than 600 pixels, left show. It's kind of the general logic there. Does that work? And what happens if you were to row this again? I think what I need to do is get away from the pager for a second and just try and create like a rough test on this one. I hate doing that, but I'm getting confused here. Let's create a test. Let's get out of here, tests, new folder, and this is going to be two plus columns, I guess. Page, let's just grab one of these. I think we can bring that to file, page.js, paste. We'll add the padding. I think we want that. Let's find our page here. And now let's put an H1 on there, 2 plus columns. And then we need to make this little sample thing here. So let's just call this div pager. Let me just call this pages, I guess. And then div. So these would be the containers. Do I want left? Let's just start with left. Whoops. And we'll duplicate that one for right. Can I call these cards? I may or may not have. Nice. Okay, so, and then we'll just add some hacky inline styles here, as I have in the past. And do pages, display, flex, and then pages, flex. I don't like flex 1. I always get confused with this. It's flex 1, maybe 1, and I'm just gonna say flex 1 because I don't know I forget what flex basis should be. I always get confused. All right, the cards have a max width on them apparently. I don't know if I like that, but we'll also just add a gap of 1 to the pages, the cards, or whatever. Okay, so we have a left and right. Now, I guess I can just. I think it's window dot resize. I'm gonna need handles on these things, so, and then I can't access the pages yet. What we're gonna do is we're going to just set this up and then say pages.append. Whoa. So that we have the handle on the thing, right? Or no, I don't have to do that. I can just do const pages equals this, and then I can just set them here. This is way better. No, I have to grab the handle here. Pages, it's the same value, even though it's overriding it. Pages equals this, or sorry, pages dot left equals this, and pages dot right equals this. Okay, now we have the handles. So down here we can reference the pages and the containers, and I'm just going to console.log the event, and I believe it's client X. No, it's, what is it on resize? What is the friggin' width? Or do I just have to access the window directly? It doesn't have a resize. Let's ask the trusty computer. Window.resize, what's the best? No, I don't want the window width. I need the element width. What options are there for DOM element width for getting via JavaScript? I forget. I think you can do it via the style. Yeah, this bounding client, computed style. There's you want the width? Gotta do some reading first. Yeah, I don't know what's the best. Best for getting usable internal width, getting total space. Do we want internal width? So I believe, it's like the content box within includes the content width and padding. So it's not the actual content that would be inside the padding of the parent. Not sure what includes content padding and border. Includes content padding and border. Calculated width of the content area is determined by the browser's final resolution. Returns a string with the unit 200 pixels and is based only on the content width as defined by CSS. It excludes padding. I think that might be what we want. Get computed style. So I don't know if this has to do with whether a width has been set using a CSS kind of selector and property, or if it actually just computes it differently. It just seems like these are 4 different values and you can take your pick. Includes padding. No. I think this is the one we want. We're going to have to convert it to a number though, I think. Sizing. Isn't that my reset, my base? Where's my CSS? My CSS. I think there's some in the framework. Framework CSS, box sizing, border box. Computed style width. It includes padding and border only if the element has box sizing, border box applied as the CSS width property is redefined in that case. Holy fork. I think that means that it's not actually how I think it's supposed to work. So I could either listen to the width of, like, if I only have one column, I could listen to the width of that column. Or I was thinking I was going to listen to the width of, like, the root, essentially, in this case. Or the pages, or whatever. Well, the pages doesn't have any padding, so I could probably just do that. But I'm actually now confused. What do I want? How do I want this to work? I don't want a right-hand column yet. I want that to be hidden. I gotta think through when these things are rendered. Is the next column rendered when I click on it? You know, there's two options there. I could either pre-render everything, which may be easier in some ways. But then if I pre-render it, I need to hide it. I mean, quickest way to do it, where'd my page go? Why does this one have a change here? Do I want this change? I didn't save it. I don't think that's gonna break anything. Let me just quickly check to make sure I don't like breaking things. Or my hash page, oh. What? Why? Oh, because the left and right are pushing it over and they're not hidden. Okay, it did break it visually. Let's take that out. I think we just hide this for a second. Don't break your shit, man. That should bring it back. Okay, so let's get out of here. It was this one I was looking for. Okay, so pages. I guess we'll do it like this. Display none. Should hide the right side. Boom. Okay, and then I do kind of want these centered. How do I center a single flex item in here like this? I think we can do it with one of these. Is it this one? Why does that not seem like it's... What is this line in the middle of these two boxes supposed to mean centered for? Doesn't really look like it. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of the idea is that it doesn't have to be centered, but it could be. Well, maybe we just skip that because my heading is left aligned and it's actually kind of looks better that way for now. But still, at the beginning, we don't have a second page. We haven't clicked on anything, so we don't want one. And then if we click on one, then it flies out. So let's just do left dot click pages dot AC, what, like 2? Did it work? Yep. But we then need pages that is not 2. Boom. Alright. And we don't want to AC, we want to TC, toggle the class. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. So that's just a quick way to represent if we click on something on the left page and it loads a right page. Boom. Now we have our second column. And those can max width fine, no problem. Now, if it gets below a certain point, this is the tricky part. When it gets below a certain point, and let's say that's going to be, it's 950. That's 650. So, yeah, I mean, it's getting pretty small. Let's go with like 700 pixels. And what width? Let's go pages.l. Which one do we want? Oh my god, my back hurts. I don't offset width. The full width of an element in pixels, including content depending border, as well as the vertical scroll bar if present. It excludes the margin. I think that might be fine. Yeah, I think offset width is fine. Offset width. Let's resize this a couple times. We're getting a width. Does that seem about right? Yep. I think. Oh, it's including this gap. Why does it do that, man? It shouldn't have a gap if there's only one thing. What the fuck? Is it because there's something here? All right, this one is 768. If I delete this one, even though it's a display none though, it shouldn't actually change. Is this hit its max width? 48M. I think that's why. Yeah, it's not because of the gap. It's because it hit its max width. Okay, so that makes more sense. Anyway, what was I doing? Got the width coming through here. And when we get below, let's just call it's like 700 pixels. If pages.l.offset width is less than 700, it is a number. Okay, good. Then we want pages that remove the second bit, right? Is that it? And then else pages.ac2. Well, we don't necessarily want to add. Fuck. We need a separate flag because this is now going to just show the second column when we resize above 700 pixels. We actually need to know whether the second column has been activated or not, which is more based on like, has something been clicked, and the pager logic, which, you know, I could check like the depth of, I don't even know how the pager is tracking. Definitely has like this hierarchy of pages, and there is a current page, I believe, when you activate. Yeah, each one has like a current child essentially that it's using here, and so I could maybe use that to like determine whether there's an active one or not. But let me see if I can dodge that whole beast for a second and just all right, I'm going to change this to sub. It's sort of like a, well, or maybe this just becomes, sometimes I'll just use break. Whoops. So this is just essentially a separate thing, separate switch. And so once we break, how do we do not to, or it's like, fuck. Why is this so confusing? When we want it to break, it's because this is a negative, logic. I'm trying to avoid doing display block because I think that's right, but it's like, but then it breaks the whole system if you're trying to use flex on the, and it's really the sub page that's it's applying this display none to. It's not usually easy to undo a display none and reset it to what it was, I don't think, unless something new has come out in the last few years since I learned this shit. But what is the selector logic? Can I add it to this one, or do I need a new one? Basically, when pages has break, we want right to be display. No, we want left to be display none, but only when there's two columns. Is that it? I think that's it. That's not what I was expecting. I thought I could have added it to this other one, but I think that's it. Let's give it a quick run. Oh, baby. And then if it's left only and it doesn't hide. That's fucking crazy. Man, those things are just these elusive little puzzles, and I think that's exactly what I wanted. So let's just make this a little bit more clear here, what's going on. So pages dot to right, we're going to add an outline 1 pixel solid blue just to... Alright, so it's essentially always going to have a blue outline. I could have just targeted it directly, but the thing is that, well, I could also then make it sort of like pages not, whoops, to left outline 1 pixel solid blue. All right, so the outline represents like the active page. When we click on something and it launches over here, then that's the active page, and that's why we want that one to stay active, even if it gets smaller. And I might need, like, you know, an extra back button or breadcrumbs or something to navigate back up. But right now my way to exit out of this is to just re-click this thing, and then we go back to a single page. And then the trick is to have this work recursively, so that then there can be a third one. So that if I were to click on something on the right side here, let's see if we can whip this together real quick. So when we click the right one, click, I think I'm just going to hack this together and be just a hard-coded third column at first. We want, should we use CSS class to be 3? I think we generally just want the same logic, at least in the sense that, so the to class is more like, it could either mean the second column or even the second subpage in this case, this one that's called right here. It could either mean that one is active, or it could mean that there's 2 columns up, which it doesn't because the break class resets that. So to kind of just means that a subpage has been activated. But that's why I was thinking about changing this to sub, so that it's sort of like there is a subpage. This is where it gets tricky because, well, let's see if I can just hack this together and get something kind of working. I don't know, do I pre-render this thing, or do I switch to like a dynamic render? I don't think it really matters. Can we say, oh, but then I'd have to have 2 different switches. I think I'm going to pre-render it. Let's do pages.third equals div.c card third. And then p third. Add a paragraph to it just so there's something to see on there. Clicking it doesn't need to do anything. And then this one, well, but we do want, how did we hide? Pages, it's not 2, we hide it. So it's like, am I going to remove the to class? Because I'm using that here. I think I'm going to change to sub, and maybe I add back a to class if I need to, because I want this. I'm thinking this should mean more like there is a sub page, which we're going to leave but then do we want left to be... Maybe... fuck. I kind of need a close button. Kind of need to, you know, hash this out and do a full thing. I don't know if clicking on left again is the right way to do that. I guess we'll try it, see if I can get it to work. It might confuse me, but so pages dot yeah, actually I kind of need fuck. Can I do a space separated list of classes? I think I can. Made an error here. Let me just see if this works. Click this. I should have 2 classes sub and 2. Okay, so not 2s actually, and then we want not 3. This is the third. All right, so right could really be 2 and third could be 3, but that's not as important right now, right? Okay, so we need then pages. I think we can just toggle 2 and 3. This is gonna get weird. I don't know if that's what we want. Left, right, 3. Okay, but then we need to hide. This is where it's gonna get tricky. I'm gonna need to like count the pages to, or yeah, it's like I need to. It's a special state when you go from 2 to 3. It's different from going from 1 to 2. And I don't know, maybe even hit it once you hit the last one, something special needs to happen. Like it definitely gets way more complicated when we try and add a third page to it, but that is kind of my goal here. So maybe I can do it up here. Pages dot third or 3 left would need to display none. I think that's what we're going for. Left, right, third. Nice. Now third would be pages. Oh, this one is not sub and not third. Wait, no, not 2, and should probably be 3. Wait, no, it is 3. Third is the, Jesus Christ, this is crazy. Pages is 3. The page itself is called third, which is actually nice here because we need, but well, they're on different elements, different level. It probably doesn't matter, but okay. So if none of the second 2 are active, then left is active. If page dot 2 is active, which is really the right column, could be called second, but we're leaving it at right for a second is fine. And then pages dot 3. Wait. Do we have 2 and 3? Two, but not 3. Then the right is active, and if it's pages dot 3, then this one, then the third one can be active. I believe that's what we want, right? Third. Now going back is going to be, it breaks it. Okay, so right click, toggle class 2 and 3. Shouldn't this reverse exactly what it did? Why not? We didn't get an error. I thought that would work for sure. All right, so right now we have a sub active, and we have the second one active. And when we click this right one, well, we go from sub 2 and 2, 3. I don't think my toggle class works properly. Let me see. Core, view. Whoa, where was it? I just saw RC, AC, TC. Where's TC? Damn it, man. Why isn't it with the other one? Yeah, so it's using has class, which is not breaking them apart. We need to basically just loop through. Alright, I'm just going to do this here. This is not going to work for the underlying function, but for, we want to say const classes equals class dot split space. And we are just returning this, so we don't actually have to do anything special there. We just then say for guess class of, is it of or in? Fucking hell, where's the loop? Where's your loop? Where's your loop? Where's your loop? For in is, I think it's for of for arrays. For constant class of classes, then we say this dot toggle class. And then it'll check. Why is it underlining? Class is not allowed. That's right. Let's just do like that, because that's awesome. And refresh and left, right, third. Okay, now it works differently, but is the way that I probably should have before. Okay, so sub and 3. Yeah, so we're adding the 2 and then removing the 2. And our logic here. So getting this to work here when I know I'm going to rewrite this, and the whole structure and like where these methods go and the way they're referencing each other, and like all the logic might change. So jumping through hoops here, I just have a feeling that as I change this, it's going to be hard to like get it working right. Let me see if I can think it through. So we click on the left one and we add the second column. And we're using reverse logic to hide it. So this sort of just means pages.to, you know, it's basically like showing it. It's essentially hiding it if this is not the case. So we need the class for it to show. So when we want 2 and 3 up, then we need both classes. But we've removed 2. Do we just want to toggle the third here? Let's see how that works. Left, right, third. Okay. Can we then toggle just the third and we bring back the left? How does that work so well? Holy shit. Boom. I don't even know what's going on right here, folks. But that's what I wanted. All right, so That's cool. I like it. And let's see if it's still responsive. Left, right, breaks to the right. Nice. And then left, right. There's no way this works properly, does it? Right, third. So here we might actually want like a left, right, and not call the second one right. Yeah, that's not working probably. So that would be, all right, let's change this to second, as it should have been. Left is going to be, first, right? First. Where are we targeting left here? Let's say, well, we can still have a left, but is that what we want? Not two, not three. I don't know. Let me just put this as first for now. Where else do we have left here? First. And this one, first. But also, if we break and we have pages dot 3, and this should this be sub or should this be 2? I think actually sub. If there's any, well, this is where it's going to get tricky, because the number of pages that are going to need to be hidden as this thing gets deeper and deeper is going to need to grow. And so essentially we might need some sort of like, well, it's really about the left and the right, right? It's not, if we have a sub, then we don't want first to display none. We actually just want the left always. So we do need, that's where we're separating this left and right. So the first isn't always going to be left. This is going to be called first now. This is going to be called second. That one's called third. This one's called first. This one's called second. And then by default, was this one going to be called left? I had it set up that way originally, but now if it's the only one, it shouldn't be called left. It should be called like solo. So definitely, I don't know, the sub thing could be, I was also thinking a class of solo. Let's see, can we card first, and let's just start with solo, and we're going to toggle that solo when we click it, I think. Still not 100% sure where I'm going with this. And then, what was I thinking? I'm pretty sure I've just completely fucked this up. First, here, second's not hiding because I changed this to second, and we need these, I think, to be, yeah, and so we don't really want pages to have that 3 thing. We want, well, unless it's like a level 3. I guess I'll leave it for now. Yeah, and sub could be more like split. It just means like go split. So where's this split? Okay. I think that kind of makes sense. And then, oh yes, this is solo, but then we remove the solo and add a left to it, because once we go split, it becomes left. That's a lot of fucking classes, but I think I'm maybe getting there. I don't know. No, not. This one's not. Well, and it does the, yeah, this, so the page dot first is the solo that we, do we need, maybe we want pages dot solo too. So we need like a class on the pages for how many or what level is active. I mean, that could get tricky. Probably won't be so hard with JavaScript, but it's like if you're on the 7th page, depth of 7, do you want like a class for it? That's not really what I'm looking for. The whole solo thing was more like, I'm confused whether it should be on the pages, if there's only one page, or I mean, it's sort of assumed that the first one's going to start solo. I don't know if we really even need that, but what I was also thinking is that pages.first.tc solo or something. I don't know. Why am I so confused now again? I don't know if I even need this one. Well, so should this be second? I think the right one should kind of always be sort of like considered the active one. No, I guess that could change. Like if you have you know, some sort of selection focus kind of UX where you could click on the right column or the left column, and depending on which one you got selected, different things show up and some sort of contextual thing. But for now, let's just change this to, well, I don't know. Could it be right? I don't know. Should right always be outlined? I'm just going to turn these off for a second. Can I do that? No. What if this is first solo? Then it would be active. And then anytime there's a right, it's active. Let's just try that. But then as I break, whichever one is, well, it'd always be the right one. So it's always active. All right, I think that works. Okay, so, and doesn't need solo. Solos just means that we don't have a sub. So can we use the split? Yeah, let's use split. So instead of solo, we can just get rid of that. We can say pages. It's really pages that are not split. Then the first is active. Okay, and then we forget all this solo bullshit. Okay, I like that better. I think this is what we want. So where are we at? Not working. We need to hide the second one. Okay, so we add 2 to show the right. So I'm using these 2 and 3 on the pages to show and hide the corresponding column, which is maybe the wrong way to go. I think maybe a more direct approach where it's like, I don't know, could an active class? Maybe active is just to show, and then you remove active to hide. Kind of, there's different ways you could mean active. Like, or like focus could be even more than active. Active could be more kind of just whether it's shown. Also, in this case, rather than using this to class, we could say pages.second, which should exist by the time you click it. Dot AC or even TC active. Maybe? Let's see. And then it would basically be something like second, or really just page. We could use card for now. Card not active. Display none. Boom. Now we don't have to do this for each one of them. Right? Ah! So we first one to be active, or we get nothing. Boom. Alright, first. Second. Second needs an outline just to make me feel better. Right. So second, active, and this one becomes right. But then when we click on this one, pages.second.rc, no, it should be TC again, I think. If this should work, I think. Right. But wait, what was that? Yeah, we need fuck. Can I just add and remove the right thing? I was thinking about having like containers for left and right where I essentially move the DOM around so that it's putting it in a different container. Could still kind of go each way, but let's see if just adding a class would work. Right. I don't know if that's what I want. Let's see. But also, if we click second, I could say, I don't know if active is the right way here. Do we want to deactivate it? I'm kind of trying. It's really focus, right? Ah, fuck, man. Fuck. All right, let's active is for visibility, focus is for outline. Anything with focus gets a friggin' outline, and anything with active without active gets hidden. Simple and sweet. Split. All right, so and left is still necessary. So when we split, then we need pages.first to, is it gonna be toggle left? Let's try it. When we click on the second one, we don't always want to toggle the first's leftness. Yeah, I'm trying to use the left as just like the responsive breakage to hide it. All right, well, let me see what we got here. First, second. Why does clicking second hide itself? Have we messed up this active business? Second active, right? We definitely want to toggle the focus. We can add focus here. We need to toggle first, toggle left and focus, I think. Holy shit balls. Second, okay. And then when we click the second one, we want the third one to be active and right and focused. Maybe? Sort of. But then, do we need to pages dot first dot gc active? I think this is going to cause a little bit of a juggling of, like when I click second is, oh, it works. Huh. Crazy. Now, responsive. Second, and third. Aww. Alright, so active, focus, right, active, right, focus. Do we need to toggle left here? Man, this is crazy. You can just switch these on and off. I'm surprised this is all working so well, to be honest. First, second, third. Does this now work? Boom! Man, that's crazy. Just toggling, all of them. That's a lot of friggin' classes to just turn on and off, but it seems to work. It seems to take the focus thing properly. Now the right class, I don't actually use the right class for anything, so focus and right are kind of the same thing. In fact, right and focus seem to be used everywhere interchangeably, except here. First one never becomes right. But that's kind of a minor thing, and getting this to work recursively so that I could make a bunch of them deep is going to be a whole thing. But that's definitely the experience that I was looking for. So first load a page, you got a single page, and you click on, you could have multiple sub pages in there, not just one, but as many things as you want, and it loads it next to it. Boom. And then instead of loading like a third column, which is kind of cool if you have a giant monitor, but also kind of not cool if you don't, you click on something else and it just kind of keeps going. Now, having a breadcrumb system so that like you see the path, like, well, where'd the first one go? It's not even there anymore. How do you get back to it? It's not entirely clear, but working through all those things is definitely not impossible. These things are pretty slow going, but I like how it's coming together so far. It has a lot of potential for multi-column workflows, and if I create like a robust system for, well, just you could have drag and drop between one side and the other. And in fact, if you wanted to move something from the first column to the second column, or any second column, like if you're trying to reorganize things, like you could have a bunch of things in here and you drag one into the other, and then you could select one of them and it pops open, and then you can see the things in there and like drag it back or drag it into a different one and then select one of those, and like dragging shit around. Adding some drag and drop to this probably wouldn't be terribly hard. I don't have drag and drop working yet for columns, for horizontal type shit, but like I do have drag and drop working here. Like if there's another column, I don't know. Actually, it might work just because the target would be different, wouldn't it? I think it might actually just work. I should try that. Huh. Because that would be pretty cool if. Now, getting the sortable, draggable thing to save properly is a whole nother beast that I haven't gotten to yet, but I don't think that would be impossible. But yeah, I mean, the whole idea is to be able to make shit quickly, and I like this. I think this is it's a good simple solution to the multi-column, the infinite column madness that I had, that I was showing earlier on the framework hash pager business here. This infinite column business. I can crank this back up. Maybe 8 is okay as long as the dev tools aren't open. I don't know why it messed up so much. Not that one. Let's go with this one. Let's go up to 8. I heard my CPU fan kick up a bit there, so it is kind of chugging. I had some pretty serious lag trying to render this in the past. It's just to get more depth to it, more of these columns. And I don't have... Anyway, this whole thing, it's cool, but it's kind of madness and need to think through, like, how it would all work. And essentially, the idea has always been that you kind of shrink or hide the contextual pages into, like, breadcrumbs or something so that, like, you can see everything that you want, and it can be 3 or 4 or 5 columns if you have the space, depending on how big the things are. Then you could, potentially drag those around and nest them and sort them and whatever. So I mean, I think there's still potential for that one too. And in fact, this thing is like more of a class that I can, reuse a little bit easier. This thing's just kind of hacked together. So turning it into a class would be the next step. And I don't know if I have the spine for that right now. My back is on fire. But, yeah, I mean, it's what I set out to do. It's exactly how I thought it could and should work. And, well, originally I was thinking I was going to have to track all the left columns. Actually, I think I would. I think if I turn it into a class that could have multiple subpages and any number of depth to it, like kind of a tree of subpages, and it all works properly, then I think there will need to be... I don't necessarily have to create an array of all the pages. I just need to make sure I have the right reference to the right page at the right time in order to add and remove all those classes properly, but I think I could figure that out. But yeah, I mean, just kind of thinking it through, it's like the major benefit to this one over this one is that because you're only showing 2 columns at once, you don't have to worry about the layout as much. You could create, well, I mean, I could create those systems I was thinking, and they're likely very similar. And in fact, these might just merge together, where once I get this all set up and working, doing it for 3 columns is just as easy. And then, well, okay, so for 3 columns, it's not so easy, because in this one, you basically have a pretty clear indication of what should happen on mobile. You just want the rightmost column. I guess on 3 columns, you would too. You would just keep the right column, the most active column, and the left 2 would hide. But in between, you might have, like, that whole idea of turning the leftmost column into this table of contents, more of like a navigation. There could be a lot more opportunity there for kind of custom stuff. And I don't really like the idea of hard coding this breakpoint on this one. I've hard coded it at 700 pixels where it does this right here. And it works, but if I wanted to change it, I have to go into the code and find the right spot. When it's like CSS, it's a little bit more like, you can, like if you were to inspect this with the browser and you can't even find that value anywhere in the CSS, you're like, how the heck is this doing this? I mean, you might notice that this break, where is it? There it is. This break class appears, and once it does, well, you'd have to then inspect the right element to see that. Where is it? Pages split break left display none. Yeah, so like I guess it's there sort of. You could, but how does the break get there? You don't. I mean, again, not a huge deal. Not sure there's a better option there. I kind of think I arrive at the conclusion that there was no better option. I mean, am I doing anything else there that I couldn't do? Like, now that I'm thinking about it, all I do is add a class. And so couldn't I do this exact same thing with container query, for example? I think so. I'm gonna try it. It's like little gain for a lot of work, and don't really feel like setting that up, but I do think I could do that. Not having that extra event listener. All right, let's try and set it up. How does how do container queries work? Containery. Define the container. I think inline size, if I remember correctly. Typically it's width, yeah. And horizontal writing modes. God, make things more complicated. Container name, we don't need that. Card wrapper. Inline size, container name, card. So do we want we have it on the pages right now. I think that's fine. And then how do you do the query part? Container name, condition, styles applied to descendants of the containers. Do you not need the name? Why has it got a question mark? I think probably would. Wait. But if we don't give it a name, if you don't give it a name, I mean, then you can only have one container system. Like all containers are essentially just a container. I guess that's fine if there's no name specified. It queries the nearest ancestor container. Okay, I think that's fine for now. Just keep it simple. Let's do one of these. Put this over here. It's this break bit. We're not going to have... I'll leave the break CSS there in case because then I can just toggle this whole thing. But I should be able to turn this off and then duplicate this bit here. So pages is now going to be container. What was it? Container size? Container or container type? The fuck? Container type, yeah. Inline size. Container type. Inline size. And then container max width 700. What was break? Display none. So we want... I think this just becomes left. And then... What? And then I think we want min width 700, display none. Oh, come on now. Why did that happen? That was weird. Oh, maybe it's still rendering this bad boy. I'm going to close this because it's too big. Maybe I should set it back from 8. I don't know. Whatever. All right, so first... Oh, you fucking guy. Min width. This is a container. Inline size. This is the container. Minimum width 700. There should be no... Why is this working? Min width 700. Min width 700. Oh, oops. Maybe I do want max width. God, those get confusing. I want it under 700. Okay. Okay. Okay, now it works. First, second, third. All right. Container query. Boom. Yeah, I think I like that a little better. So now what? Do we try and turn it into a class? I could try. This is just remarkably simple, but yeah, it's hard-coded for three bits here. Three subpages. I mean, if I could get it to work with like this page syntax where you can just define pages so easily, that'd be pretty cool. Still trying to think through pages versus sections, because sections of pages are kind of a similar concept. They just look a little different. Now, sections would probably show up in a table of contents. Pages probably should also show up in a table of contents. Depending on how you wanted that to work, would they look any different? I mean, maybe instead of, you know, maybe scrapping the idea of a section and everything is just a subpage. The problem is then you'd have to define a bunch of instead of creating a section for things, you'd literally create a subpage for everything. I don't know if you'd want to be forced into that. And then maybe, you know, you might want a section that's not like clickable and interactive, where maybe the section is part of the table of contents, but it's not clickable. I don't know, but like if you wanted to comment anywhere, wouldn't you want to allow commenting on specific sections? Like I think you would, even specific paragraphs. Huh. Can I get like some filler content for... Didn't I have like a master layout somewhere? Layout, master. Yeah, this little bit would work. Master of layouts. This would be in the folder layout master.page. This little bit here. Don't need that. Let's go with this and go back here and put this on our first page. Sublime Text always had a good like retab system. Like you'd paste things in, it would just tab it perfectly, but VS Code sucks at that. Let me go back to this one, refresh. Wow, that was weird. It cached the thing. And this card has bad padding. But yeah, now it's kind of looks a little more real. But yeah, I mean, so the idea of like each section being like a clickable thing that then, well, okay, so part of this whole subpage thing that I've, you know, learned from using Notion and just kind of thinking these things through a lot is that if you have a section here with a title and a paragraph of content or images or whatever is in that section, like when you click on it, what comes over here, it would either be entirely supplemental, like you don't want to repeat the whole thing, but like presumably a subpage could have like, you know, the content, instead of the content being on the left side, you could put the content on the right side so that it's like got its own title and content here. And so it's just kind of a, you know, trade-off of, do you want, and it, you know, I guess it's sort of, when it comes to the readability of each page, essentially, especially when you consider on mobile, you're going to be breaking this down to one column. um, having the content all, here means you can kind of skim through it all and read it all in place. Whereas if you had like a little link box, like a little block, I think I had one of those somewhere. Where did I make those things? Probably couldn't find it if I wanted to. Well, was it the subpage thing? Let me see. Or the hash pager? Oops, no, nope. Clicked on the wrong thing. ext hash pager. It's going to take a minute to render. Yeah, these little blocks. So if you had these little blocks here where you have, like the title of the section, you don't have any of the content there, which is, it's a trade-off. It's like, and in a way it's more organized, but also then you have to do more work to like click through it. Whoa, bro. Yeah, we're going back to 5. Fuck this thing. I don't know why it's chugging so hard, man. It's not that hard to render these friggin' subpages. Hash pager page make 5. I think with the DevTools open, but also just, I think these tabs kind of like need to be refreshed or basically closed out and reloaded from time to time just to kind of clear out the memory and garbage collection and all that shit, especially when you're creating like hundreds of subpages. Anyway, so yeah, these little link blocks are kind of cool, and they allow for like, you could have a wealth of content in here that's kind of neatly tucked away. And so it's, an organizational mechanism, but it certainly differs kind of in terms of the readability. So if we go back to, I think it was test 2 columns, we have the, this padding is way too little. I can jack that up. It's going to look funny on some of these though. Page. I could just do it for the first one. First padding 2M3M maybe. It's a little better. Yeah, so like in terms of the readability of the column, or of the page rather, and the content, having everything nestled away into subpages means, you just got to click through a bunch. Now, I've kind of gone back and forth on this. Like if you have big sections, whoa, no way to climb back out without, that was weird. I guess it's how it should be, right? Anyway, the having like navigation kind of like tiles or bricks or kind of big icon items that you can click on that then link to something, even if it had a little preview. It's sort of like those UI cards, UI card design. There's all kinds of like UI cards that'll just image, paragraph, often little blocky things that you can click on. It's just kind of an easy thing to do. You could put those within the page and create, a very kind of like tangible navigation experience where you have subpages within there. Yeah, but again, okay, so, and then the trick becomes, okay, well, do you preview, like what kind of image and title and like paragraph do you put in the card on the first part? Like it's like you're embedding a preview of the thing. And then you presumably might want, well, first to repeat, do you repeat exactly what you just had? Same, especially in a contextual workflow like this, where you're going to keep the left open and have, the exact same contents appear over here. Well, that's just redundant if it was exactly equal. Now, it could be more of a full, full view, especially if you have a lot more room. And this one kind of, this column, as I was kind of bouncing around over here, like the left column could be more contextual, and the right column could be no, we don't want. Can we do flex 0. Whoops, flex 0.5? Nope. Can we do this one to be flex 2? No? 2, 1. Why doesn't that work? Flex 1, 1, 0%? I don't know what I need here, man. It's just grow, shrink. Shouldn't the flex with the higher flex grow more? Grow, it's grow, shrink. Why does that not work, motherfucker? Is it, are we hitting the max width? That's probably why, yeah. Okay, there we go. So, whoops. So the whole thing is like, you know, if you have these navigation things that are kind of like preview like, and then you click on one, you could just leave it and have that be the preview, and then have, it would be a little bit redundant, but you could then have like a bigger version over here with like a bigger title, and the image gets bigger, and probably would have the same preview paragraph underneath it, because, you know, you're kind of considering that on mobile you're not going to have the left column as context. And then you could also have all kinds of extra buttons and workflow. And so it would be a little bit redundant. It's also kind of like, it reminds me of tabs. It's almost like this is a tab that activates this like sub area for the tab. And then you'd be able to switch. You'd be able to click on this one and see, you know, the rest of it. And you'd be able to click on this one and see the rest of it. And so they are kind of like tab sections almost, where the little, instead of having just a little button, you have a whole big tab area. So lots of things that could happen with this, but I'm gonna reset it and think about it for a second. I mean, I really do need to just get something published. I haven't actually pushed the code to my website in a while. Well, my current, the lou42.com is currently hosted via Firebase, and I'm not going to use Firebase because hasn't been a good experience. I do have a VM with Google like set up, and it's like a little micro VM that can barely breathe, but I actually pushed the code to it. I don't remember the IP address. I'd have to go look it up to figure out, you know, how to do it. But to get the page working these days, you have to have, you know, you have to have a certificate for HTTPS, and so I'd have to set that up, which isn't terribly hard, but then I'd have to configure this, you know, my dev server, I don't believe is HTTPS. It's not required. It's not throwing like one of the errors as it would online, but yeah, it's not secure. It's localhost, obviously, whatever. But you know, you have to change the server configuration in Node to be able to listen for HTTPS. I've actually, you know, AI was trying to tell me it's a bad idea and I should let Google handle my TLS, you know, termination as they call it. It was just basically like give Google the encryption keys to all the traffic on my website, so that instead of doing it myself, they do it for me. And in terms of like the processing load on the micro VM, it would be better in some ways to let that happen. It's just fundamentally like, why would you let a tech giant that's already got so much power and data, you know, sift through all of your traffic? Now, if it's a static website, like there's literally nothing they couldn't just access themselves. So right now it's kind of, you know, silly to split hairs over. But if I'm trying to make a website where people can log in and post stuff and, you know, privately communicate, for example, then, you know, it just, I'm amazed that the standard approach for websites these days is to allow Google or whoever, Amazon or Microsoft, to do your TLS termination. That's like insane. So I decided to not do that, to try and figure it out the right way. And I could do it. It would take several hours to just figure out the proper way to do it. And I'd probably need, I don't think I want to try and develop an HTTPS mode locally, because you have to, I've done it before. I did it up here on a different site. It was this 3D stuff. I was trying to use the gyro information in the browser, the gyro API, and I had to create a certificate, and I had to create a special server. Like I had to reconfigure my whole server so that I could create this override file and essentially be able to listen on port 443, but also use this HTTPS module instead of... Am I not using Express here? I guess... Wait, no, I am, right here. Express app initialize server. How did this work? Let me see. I think server. Let me open this one here, and I'm more just curious what's going on here because this doesn't make sense to me. Open this one here. How am I using Express app? Oh, okay. The Express app gets passed to HTTPS create server. It's always confusing how that works. Like, what the fuck is going on there? I don't know much about what Express is doing and how it works under the hood, but passing in the Express app to an HTTP thing. Yep, this is the kind of corresponding line without HTTPS. But anyway, doing the HTTPS locally is it wasn't super hard to get set up. I don't think. It was just, I feel like there was a drawback to it. Well, I think the certificate is not a real certificate, and so when you load it up, it gives you a big red error thing, and I'm not sure if you have to like click through it on the first time, and so it just makes development a little bit more jarring, where you're like, whoa, what's going on? And then it's like, whenever you do something different like this, it's like, is this the reason why this isn't working? Any error you might have with network stuff, with like cores or whatever, it's like, is this because I'm doing this on developing locally on with a different HTTPS module? It's an extra variable that I'm not used to, and so I'm not sure if I set up my website to use HTTPS, use node's HTTPS, so that I can it's essentially doing that TLS termination. Not that I necessarily trust that module any more than Google, but maybe a little bit. It's also a lot more processing work, so it might bog down that micro server. That actually could be the biggest reason not to do it. So maybe I would switch back to it, doing the TLS thing. And I forget what I had to do to configure it that way, because I feel like there was some, I'm pretty sure there was something that the AI walked me through to configure the VM to not do the TLS termination. Although I'm not actually sure. I'm not actually sure if I did that. Wait here, why don't I pull that up? I haven't been there in a while. Let's go to console.cloud.google.com. Was that what it was? Don't look at my keyboard. Alright, so it's possible I'm leaking private keys or something here, but YOLO. Got my VM. Got my IP, external IP, boom. Should have an old version of my website. No? What the fuck? It says it's on. What just happened, guys? Maybe this IP is like, it takes a minute to boot up Reload. No. It worked before. It's possible node crashed. Let's SSH into this bitch. Okay. Yeah, I think I have to do this every time. Twice? Sure, Google, why not? Oh my lord, I just did. Whoops. Yeah. Okay. How many clicks does it take to log in? Instance name. How do we... It's possible that the node thing just crashes when I close the SSH. I don't actually know how that works. Because like on my local, when I start up node, if I close this, does it close the process? I think it might. Yep. It kills the process when you close the SSH. That's kind of crazy. Because I didn't tell it to stop. I just closed the window. Oops, not this one. Do I need to run as administrator? I always forget. Server.js. Actually, I could update. Let's I think the best way for me to do this is to update the framework first. Pub framework. Git add all. Git commit. Yeah. Git push. cd git add all. Git commit. Yeah. Git push. Bit push. Git push. All right. And then over on this other one, cd git. Let's go. I think I'd get pull first, don't I? Let's just try it. Error, your local changes to the following files would be overwritten by merge. Oh man. I'm not actually sure what to do here. Fucking Git, man. It's so powerful and so stupid at the same time. It's like, we're not going to do what you want. Why is the directory different? Maybe because the file paths are different because it's Linux instead of Windows. That's probably it. How about we ask the computer? Git won't let me pull because of some changes. I don't need them, so how do I revert them? That I don't need. Can I just force it? Or stash it or something? It's not remember to force. This command doesn't actually exist to override local changes in the way you need using existing local change. Stash, you might want. I guess that's fine. Oh, fuck off. Let's just try it. There we go. Alright, probably will have to do that a bunch of times, but now we got all our shit here. Git, no, not git, node server.js. Oh, buddy, that's slow. Error. denied. WebSocket. Isn't... I got it working before, didn't I? But without permission denied. I'm pretty sure I ran this before. I don't know why the heck it wouldn't work this last... I don't know why it would work last time and not this time, unless it has something to do with, like, permission. Let me ask. Let's just paste this thing in. I do sort of remember this. Yeah. So I could use different ports, but then I have to like map them or something, right? Or, well, the socket I could just configure it differently, but I just sort of remember this. Can I just, yeah, sudo. There we go. Quick hack to just be like, shut up, computer, do what I tell you to. Sudo node server.js. Server.js. There we go. And now we refresh this. We refresh this. Must have thrown an error. No? Did the IP change? What is going on? This is the IP, right? VM instances. Did it change? 208.119.75. Come on. Where was that thing? So, it says it's listening. I definitely had this page loaded before. Why is it not working? See, this is the bullshit that it's just like, there's probably just some stupid thing that wasn't turned on or got turned off or whatever. Let's copy this. Copy. It seems my VM is running. The IP is this. Oh, it's trying to go via HTTPS. That's why I need to chuck that S there. There we go. All right. So, where was I? Test. Yep. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. So now it's live on this not secure IP address, and I could try and get this over to lou42.com. I think my domain is with like Squarespace or something because Google barfed on it. And then I would have to set up the... Well, how would that work? Like, what did it say? It's ports under 1,000? So I think using a reverse proxy or something might even be required. Like, if I wanted to host HTTPS via node with node's HTTPS module, it has to listen on 443, which is privy, which needs sudo, and rather not use a reverse proxy unless, let's just leave it at that. Enter. Good job. There we go. feeling it was barfing again. What the heck? Just copy this. I don't know why it gets bogged down sometimes. It's a great question. Thanks, Google. Can listen on any available port, web browsers, default, and so if you listen on a different port, user would have to type it in. Yeah, that's ugly and not necessary. Yep. Yep. Best practices without. Alright, so capnet bind service equals plus EP. Very intuitive, guys. The path to node may vary, use which node to find it. This is the most secure method. Well, seems like a one-liner. Probably forget how to do that in the future. So like all these little setup steps are hate all this config bullshit, but could try it. Should I jump through hoops to do this? I mean, I should have probably cleaned up like the homepage instead of having this funny video of me dancing around in the basement. Look at those moves. Yeah, I could try and clean it up, but there's just so much shit. It's, there's a lot of stuff that's just not set up properly. I was trying to like maybe create like a style system, but just trying to create a lot of shit and just kind of run with it for a minute and then give up on it because that's the kind of guy I am. These were kind of cool. I had this whole thing set up where you could add well, you could change styles and like create whole fucking structures, like layouts and stuff. Boom, look at that layout. Ain't that pretty? I mean, layout's fun. It's like when you get it working properly, when you have nice strong layouts and everything kind of snaps together, it's pretty cool, but doesn't always work the way you want it to. What if this one goes flex? Boom. Kind of crazy. All these things are... That's kind of weird. Oh, 110, yeah, 50%. Anyway, what should I do with my life? I just want to drink, but I know it's not good for me. Kids are going to be home. Oh, it's already 3:37. Kids are going to be home any minute. I'm still in my PJs. It's a good example. Maybe I should go put some pants on. Yeah, maybe tomorrow I'll try and launch my site again. Give an update to it. Really, I just need to configure the domain name, but I need to get the HTTPS working properly, which means I do need to run some sort of cert bot to get the cert, but also keep it updated so I don't have to keep worrying about that all the time. And I probably need to, at some point, redo my hash router to use, instead of using the hash character, which is nice and easy, and I'm using the hash change event, but it's not SEO friendly. Which doesn't really need to be, but if I wanted to use this as like a production framework, then it probably should be, so. But I do feel like if I were to clean this thing up and publish it and make it like more useful, that people could create a lot of cool stuff with it. I've always felt that way, but it's been a long, slow battle trying to like weed through, what I can do, what I should do, what's worth working on. Just can't seem to figure out the right combo. Well, in the next few minutes before the kids get home, let me think out loud about this routing. I'd kind of like to just get rid of it. That would be the cleanest, most ideal solution. And because I'm using a node server, like the framework is roughly static compatible, so you don't have to use your own node server. You could host it. I think there's ways to host via just like Amazon's S3 buckets or GitHub pages even, or whatever, just like any static compatible hosting, especially with a fallback. I always get confused about that. Like, I've kind of gone around in circles in terms of what's required, and, I'd have to think that all through. But, the hash thing is kind of useful because it tells the server where to serve. Like, serve this route, and then the rest is just kind of like dynamic. And, so it's good. And I guess, well, okay, so if I'm going to use a node server, so this is static compatible. Like the browser just does this automatically, and so most static servers should be configured to just serve the right page, and then the hash router takes over from there. And so that's like it's nice, but because it's not SEO friendly, it's not like a production ready router. You don't want to it's not the search engine is not going to index these sub elements. Although I don't know, maybe it will. It's not going to do it at the right path though. It's gonna like all the content of all the dynamic content basically gets SEO'd as one route. And so if somebody's searching for something that's on a deep subpage and the Google bot finds it, they're gonna link them to the root page, and they're not gonna find the thing. And especially, so this is the hash router. I meant to click on the hash pager, which is the super deep one. If your shit is like super deep, like there's no way they're gonna go be able to find it. I mean, they might, like if they knew exactly if your content was organized real well, and they just skimmed through it and were like, okay, it's probably here, probably here, probably here, and then they could go find it. But generally speaking, if there's some specific like quote that they search for that you matched, SEO wise, you'd want that path to be. You'd want when they click the link on the search engine result page, you'd want them to link to the proper hash path, and that's where I think this router fails, is that the hashes are considered just irrelevant to SEO. I mean, I could be wrong on that. I don't really trust AI. I don't know if they actually know exactly, and maybe Google does treat them, and so maybe testing it out would be worth it. But okay, so the alternatives are use a different character like the exclamation mark. And so that would be treated as a fully qualified SEO URL. And then on the server side, I'd have to do this with my node server, and so it would not be static compatible with most default web static servers. But I could use the exclamation mark as in a similar way, and then use server side logic to serve to basically just ignore the exclamation mark, and then to serve the page.js essentially that's in this path. And so that would work as an alternative. However, then you disregard the static compatibility. You wouldn't be able to use it with GitHub pages. And so if I'm trying to like grow this thing into something bigger, then it's going to be a lot harder to, persuade people to use it. If, the GitHub pages thing I think is pretty cool because you can just clone the repo, write some code, push it up, refresh browser, and then it's live. And so you could make shit and it's live. I think there's a lot of power to that. In fact, like as I'm thinking about it, with all these marketing endeavors that I've been thinking about, trying to get people to do something, I could host it on my own page, which, for Google Analytics or whatever is, fine. But if I wanted to just test some shit out, I don't have much capacity to test some shit out. But, being able to throw up like, as many kind of new domains and even do it kind of like anonymously, for example, it's not a bad idea, because then you can, test out different strategies, different types of websites that aren't all connected back to your main kind of brand or whatever. So that's a thing. But anyway, the Bang router would be an alternative and could work for especially my website, any kind of node hosted website. Could solve the SEO thing. I would need to start getting into push states and be able to listen to the way that the hash router and pager work is that it listens to the hash change window event, and so I'd have to kind of redo that functionality in some way. Have to think that through. I don't know much about the push state system. The hash change thing seems pretty simple. I could just say screw SEO, like just use this one that's working. And that's kind of what I was feeling in the past, and why I just decided to go with it, is that that's weird. Look, this is like no selection, current selection, like focus selection, and then when you click up here into this text area, it goes like gray. It's kind of interesting. Looks kind of cool, actually. Yeah, so maybe changing the router is not such a great idea, but if I wanted to use the framework for, production for like client sites, I don't know if that little thing... Okay, well, so here's the thing about this. If I were to do that, it's kind of just a cheap hack so that my server logic can serve the right file. But then what I started thinking, and this is kind of what I was maybe drifting towards while thinking out loud here, is that if I configure the server properly, and maybe it's based on the presence of like a page.js or a route.js or some kind of file, because I am doing this directory thing and I could easily load the whole site directory into the server as well. In fact, it already is. I think every time I start the server, the entire directory is in there. And so I, using that data, I could then just get rid of this the necessity for this character. And so then on every page request, I'd basically need to break the whole path into parts and then find that kind of like the deepest route with an actual, for example, route.js file. So it'd be a bit different way to configure which page gets served, but it would then clean up the URL structure. And so if I were to do it that way, I'd probably do it that way rather than keep this little exclamation mark, which just looks kind of funny. So that's a big project, and if I survive long enough, maybe I'll get to it in 5 to 10 years. But for now, getting the DNS configured, getting the HTTPS configured. I do think this is probably something worth trying if it works. If I got my website, lou42.com, like live, maybe I could try throwing some money at some banner ads or something. Just see if I can get somebody to click through, get them to land on the thing, get the analytics working. Maybe host a video from YouTube just to, like, as a welcoming on the landing page. Like, hey, it worked. Welcome. Thanks for coming. Maybe click a button to let me know you're a real person or something. I don't know. All right, 3:48. That's the time the kids usually walk in the door, so I'm gonna sign off and go put some pants on.